Number 3, not ashamed to talk. Lean on me when you're not strong. I'll be your friend. I'll help you carry on, for it won't be long. I'm gonna need somebody to lean on. Okay. If you know that you can talk about your troubles and your weaknesses and your own little personal points of insanity, if you know that you can talk with somebody about something, life is a little bit easier because you don't carry it alone. Now, I play around with the Garden of Eden stuff nowadays. I used to think it was a stupid fairy tale. And then read the Transfiguration portion of the Bible. Read the Transfiguration in Matthew and Mark and in Luke. Read the Transfiguration story. There's little bits and pieces that are different. And picture that shining white person showing up in the Garden of Eden. Here's these human beings that are naked. They're naked and not ashamed. And every once in a while, there's this shining white human form that comes into the garden, and that is actually the real visible form of the designer of the entire universe walking with human beings. So they're walking along. It's like, hi, there's God who made us, and he's actually walking along with us. Let's ask him how he made butterflies. Let's ask him how water can pour out of my hand onto the ground and disappear. Let's ask him, how did he decide to make fingernails? And why do fingernails and hair grow, but other things don't grow? Shining white form of Yeshua, the walking in presence form of the divine being, life giver, spirit of loving kindness, who adores us, who's thrilled with us. The one who made us is thrilled with us and fascinated with us. So, if you're not ashamed to talk about various topics, then you can actually learn more. I used to work on antique cars, and people would be ashamed of asking questions like, I would tell them, like, look, you're not born with this information. You just have to learn. You just have to communicate and understand. So the concept of lean on me is a really big part of life. And that's part of why I'm making this for you, Eliana, and your man, and anybody else that watches this. Lean on me is the game. Now the next segment is going to be not ashamed to talk about arousal. Now, arousal. Arousal is a neat word. It means to become excited or enthused or filled with a special spirit or desire. So physical arousal, if we talk about physical arousal, then we're going to be talking about organs of the body. I don't know if you're aware of it, but there has been a revolutionary change in the teachings about human physiology. In about 1996 to 1998, there was research done on the erectile tissue that is inside of the woman. It's called the clitoris. And it's just an organ, like a liver or a lung or a kidney or an eye or a tongue. It's an organ. The clitoris has been discovered, and the form of it has been discovered, and it's just as big as the erectile tissue of the male human being, but it's in this amazing, interesting form that surrounds the sword sheath, which is what the word vagina means. And the best word for the entire female anatomy is the vulva, because the vulva is the whole deal. So, if we're not ashamed to talk about arousal, which is just a part of our family human body, then that's a good thing, because we might learn how to be aware and not to awaken arousal if it's not really time. But then there's another thing. There's Holy Spirit arousal. These two things nobody talked to me about at all, ever. Okay, and I'm about to show you that I was introduced to arousal personally, and my mother was introduced to Holy Spirit arousal, but she was told not to tell anybody by the church people. And a supernatural, amazing event that happened to my mommy was shut up, shut down, and silenced by the churchianity people. Now, I don't hate nobody no more, but I'm telling you, boys and girls, I could have been a very different person if somebody had not been ashamed or afraid to talk to me about physical arousal, the feel-good of the body. It feels so marvelous. It feels just so wonderful. And it feels even more wonderful to share it with somebody. If somebody had not been ashamed to talk about physical arousal and Holy Spirit arousal, I wouldn't have been doing this talk at 65 years old. But guess what? There is a sweet spirit who is in control of everything. And so all I'm trying to say is I never had any children of my own. I'm treating you like my own family. I don't want you to be having troubles. If you're having troubles, I want you to be able to check out and free your mind. Go to my YouTube channel, Grandpa Honesty Guy, and find the playlist called Surprise Language Stories. Surprise Language Stories. Surprise Language Stories. There's a few playlists. And they all have different things on them. And there's a lot of neat things on them. But there's one video. And you can look for that directly if you want. Speaking in Tongues Medical Study. Speaking in Tongues Medical Study. Dr. Andrew Newberg in University of Pennsylvania, where my mommy went to school. My mommy had a degree from U of P, and she had a degree from Duke College of Nursing, and she taught nursing. If you look at Speaking in Tongues Medical Study YouTube video, you will discover that when people are speaking in tongues, it's almost as if they're not speaking. Your frontal lobe is quiet. Your nervous system is actually calmed down and quieted when you're speaking in tongues. Now, this is the Holy Spirit arousal, and how marvelous it is. And it's actually useful for clearing your mind. Now, this gift, supernatural gift from invisible Jesus in the spirit realm, who is with us right now. Read Luke 24 again, Road to Emmaus. He shows that he's omnipresent. He just starts popping up places. He is omnipresent. He is right here. He is physically present with us because I am talking in behalf of his wisdom, which is sweetness and love and loving kindness wisdom and service to the human family wisdom. So the Holy Spirit arousal is a gift that came after Yeshua went back into the spirit realm, and it came with the surprise language. The disciples didn't know that they were going to get a crazy wild language to use. So, if you're in heavy business or if there's a lot of trouble going on, if you spend some time in the spirit, your own human logic goes to rest, and what rises up is an idea or some instruction from God. And you'll hear it's not time to do this. Take a break and go wash the dishes. And you'll actually get some inner instruction as you are flowing in the Holy Spirit's presence. You're inviting in the Holy Spirit and you're using the arousal gift of the speaking in tongues. And and it's fun because it's almost like the arousal gift of the physiology is where, you refresh with your friend. Just the physical pleasantry of sharing arousal is an escape from a lot of the troubles and worries of this world. And it is a special sense, a human sense. It's like they say we have five senses. Well, what about the sense of the feel good? That's another sense. My goodness, it's marvelous. So no one ever was unashamed to talk about the arousal of the body and the organs of the body engaged in arousal. Now, in Leviticus 15, it talks about the blood. It talks about the flow. The flow from me, the flow from the man, is the fountain that comes out that's full of babies. But the flow from the inner flow of the woman is the wonderful thing. The inner flow of the woman, the blood of the woman and the blood of the man blend together, and they become a brand new person, just like you or me, a little baby kid, just like me. And it's amazing. But in this age, the marrying is passing away, and the invitation to singleness like Yeshua is a top-notch teaching of the new covenant, and I never got that top-notch teaching. They're like, hey, they would tell the kids, if you can be single like Jesus, oh my gosh, you're going to have more travel, more miracles, more alone time with God, more poetry, more music, more ability to inspire many children. You're going to be able to be the favorite aunties and uncles, and no, marrying is not wrong, but the Holy Spirit's going to tell you and us collectively if it's time for you to have a person of your own to enjoy, because the arousal, the pleasure, the physical arousal is a neat part of life, and that's something that we should enjoy if it's time to enjoy that. But enjoyed in, the atmosphere or the structure of agreement with the whole tribe agreeing together. Is this a marriage covenant? And that's actually where the pleasure should be. It should be housed inside of a promise. So, tra-la, not ashamed to talk about arousal, physical arousal and the organs, and Holy Spirit arousal and the benefits of it. So, the funny thing about me is my mommy, when I was 25 years old, she broke down in tears. And she told me, I have to tell you all about our life, your life. And she could tell I was in a lot of relationship stuff. I was what you would call, inside of me, I was what you would call polyamorous, which means, fooling around and sharing arousal and pleasure in all kinds of different relationships and not respecting marriage or monogamy. And a lot of the songs that I sang were about polyamory or that kind of stuff, and a lot of the cinema and the literature that I read was inviting, celebrating, or justifying that type of behavior. And so my mother could tell that I had some relationship stuff going on that was kind of intense, and there were different women that I was in relationship with. And she broke down in tears and she told me, listen, I was with over 120 guys before I got pregnant with you at 22 years old at Duke College of Nursing. I was at Duke College of Nursing, and there was a guy that I was secretly engaged to for almost 5 years. There was a guy I was secretly engaged to, and he broke up with me. He broke up with me while I was trying to pass my nursing boards, And I was so emotional and disappointed. I was in a couple of other comfort relationships, and I got pregnant. And so I don't know who your father is. It's one of three guys, and I don't know their names. And I came home to New Jersey, and a guy that I had been with, that I had been intimate with, that could have been a daddy, but he was in a different state. He was going to go to Lutheran seminary to become a youth minister because his daddy had died when he was a little boy, 9 years old. And many Lutheran ministers came to him and were dads to him and would pick him up and take him home and take him places and stuff. And he learned so much Bible by the time he was in high school. He was the greatest, like, wisdom expert almost in the whole school with the kids. He was a Bible scholar, and he was a very wise and discerning person. And he decided, I'm going to go to Lutheran seminary and just be a youth pastor like the guys who have helped me. I want to be like them. I want to help kids. So he went to seminary for 2 years, and behind the scenes there was all this negative stuff, and he decided these people are just in it for the money. They don't really believe in the ethics and the lifestyle of Jesus, and all these Christians are fakers. So he quit Christianity and he joined psychology, and he studied the Freud and Jung religion at Temple University. And he was at Temple University the same time as Bill Cosby, and he got a degree in child psychology, and he was a child psychologist for my whole life while he was raising me. My daddy was a child psychologist for 30 years, kindergarten to 8th grade, and he cared a lot about the kids and the moms in Camden, New Jersey. Because, see, in Camden County, there are extremely poor people in extremely rough, nasty neighborhoods in Camden. And then just a mile and a half away, there are extremely rich people, and all of their kids have special uniforms and special opportunities at school, and the kids in the Camden schools have almost nothing. So my father spent most of his time caring for the poorest people in the psych unit operations and the special ed operations in the 60s and 70s. My mother worked in Hahnemann Hospital. She taught nursing at Helene Fold School of Nursing in Camden, and she was an amazing woman who was also a juvenile psych nurse with kids that have become wards of the state in Hahnemann Hospital. And I have a whole lineage of caring for people type people in my family. So, having the courage, not ashamed to talk about arousal and the organs of the body, and not afraid of talking about the Holy Spirit and the usefulness of the supernatural powers of Jesus in ordinary life. I mean, I want you guys' business to be best. So if you're trying to make a decision on whether you should, take this course or not take this course, or major in something, or get married first, or build a business, or go do some kind of overseas service together first, whatever you're planning on doing, I want you to make decisions with the Holy Spirit. And getting into an honesty and communion group circle will actually help you talk directly with the Holy Spirit and get answers that come to a whole circle of people. I want to draw your attention to Acts chapter 14, verse 21 to 23. Acts chapter 14, verse 21 to 23. And Acts chapter 13, verse 1 and 2. Acts chapter 13, verse 1 and 2. And Acts chapter 15, verse 28. Ideally, read Acts chapter 13 and 14 and 15, but those are the punctuation points. Human beings are actually talking to God. First, they cleanse their consciences and renounce anything that's negative behavior in their life. They renounce any negative behavior. In the apostolic tradition of Hippolytus, before, as you're coming in for baptism, if you're curious about baptism, you will be challenged about your lifestyle. If you work with any kind of wicked business, like the gladiator games or the circus or the theater that has a lot of wicked stuff in it, if you work in any kind of negative employment, you are going to be asked to literally get out of that employment. You're going to be interviewed before your baptism. And they're going to talk with you also about your concept of covenant, marriage covenant, and the sharing of your physical form. But the amazing thing is your opportunity for the Holy Spirit is going to be a thing for your whole life success, including the person that you decide to be with. And so there's all kinds of things that you can do because you begin consulting the Holy Spirit. So the Holy Spirit arousal is kind of the greatest arousal. And we are going to talk about physical arousal and Holy Spirit arousal, because the physical arousal of the male human being is a thing that can be monitored and controlled through exercise. And the physical arousal of the female human being is a thing that can be brought forth or stimulated or improved because of the self-control of the male human body. And that is a thing that I learned when I was 36 years old. It's a thing that I could have learned when I was 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years old. And this is part of the teaching. Not being ashamed of talking about arousal. The feel good of the body is not evil. It's a wonderful gift.